Hello and welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback, and today we're flashing back to March 4th, 1988. We got 3 films to look at today, so let's not waste any more time and get right to it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, if you will, because this was not a big new release, nor was it a hit either. It was Richard Pryor in Moving.
Adults with a normal family. Now you're moving.
I don't want you in my house.
I gave him the wrong finger. Richard Pryor is Moving. Rated R. Starts Friday, March 4th.
So Richard Pryor stars as Arlo Pear. He's a family man with a loving wife, a rebellious daughter, twin sons, and a half-dead dog. He also gets a nice job with the city in New Jersey. He's a mass transit engineer, but one day Arlo is fired, so he must try to get another job. He finds a similar one to his old one, except it's in Boise, Idaho. Sounds good to Arlo, so he can get away from this insane neighbor who has a lawnmower the size of Pennsylvania. Only problem, how to break it to the family. The decision is soon made, they're moving. Now they've got to sell their house with hilarious results, if you want to go by the synopsis. So they need to get movers. 2 former cons, now movers, show up with King Kong Bundy. Now they've got to find a new house in Idaho. They soon find their dream home. Soon they return to New Jersey, head off to Boise. Arlo hires a man played by Dana Carvey to drive his Saab to Idaho, not knowing that he's a man of 8 personalities, and if that isn't bad enough, their new house is not what they expected. Their neighbor in New Jersey's twin brother lives next door, and he has a gigantic mower also. And as if things couldn't get any worse, they do. Arlo loses his new job, and the movies never showed up. So now it's time for Arlo to kick some serious ass, and okay, what the fuck is this movie, man? Like, it's not a good sign when Richard Pryor shows up on Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson's asking him about the movie, asking him, what's it about? And he says, 2 hours too long. Richard Pryor says that, and, yeah, that's pretty much what this movie is. Imagine The Money Pit, except nowhere near as funny, nowhere near as clever, and, The Money Pit got away with more in with a PG rating than this does with an R rating. It's just like, I don't know what the hell this movie was, and this is directed by the same guy that did Back to School, and also did stuff like Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which was the movie that introduced everybody pretty much to Helen Hunt, as well as Sarah Jessica Parker. And, but then again, this is also the same guy that made the last Police Academy movie, and 2 Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen movies, and the Growing Pains movie. So this is probably the point where his career took the downward spiral, and he could never get back to where he was once before. And, yeah. Richard Pryor was not making a lot of very good movies around this time period. I mean, even if you want to watch this for the early appearances of people like, Dana Carvey, Leslie Jordan, Randy Quaid's also in here as well, Marsha Wallace from The Simpsons, Alan Oppenheimer, yeah, King Kong Bundy, Rodney Dangerfield is in here. I completely forgot he was even in this movie. That's how bad this movie is. Like, if Rodney Dangerfield can't make you laugh in a movie, then the movie is clearly not doing its job well at all. If you can't even get a laugh from an uncredited Rodney Dangerfield nonetheless, it's just like, nothing about this movie works, and you can feel what Richard Pryor is coming from here when he says that this movie is way too long. Nothing of interest or value happens in this film whatsoever. The jokes aren't clever, the writing isn't clever, the story isn't all that interesting, and it throws all these loopholes to keep a thread of a plot going, and it just can't hold it together when it matters the most, and the film just backfires so much that you just can't get an investment into the film whatsoever, and it's just a boring movie, man. It's a movie that doesn't feel like it has a motive, it doesn't have a motivation to it, and it's just not funny, man. Like, Richard Pryor was making, like I said, he made some pretty bad movies around this time. This may not be the worst, but this is definitely one of those ones that makes you go, like, what the hell were you thinking when you said yes to this? So, yeah, that's Moving for you. So let's go ahead and move on, no pun intended, to our next movie, which is Burt Reynolds, Kathleen Turner, and Christopher Reeve in Switching Channels.
My ex-wife is cracking up.
It's a working relationship that's just not working.
How could you send the man I love up in a glass elevator when you know he's afraid of heights?
How can I know he's afraid of heights? He's so tall.
You!
A romance that just won't quit. Hey, do you know what she did the 3rd time we went out?
Do we ever?
Kathleen Turner, Burt Reynolds, Christopher Reeve. Rated PG. Starts Friday at a theater near you.
So Burt Reynolds plays the producer of a cable news network, and Kathleen Turner is his ex-wife and best reporter. Her desire to quit the news business and marry the sporting goods manufacturer, played by Christopher Reeve, comes as an innocent man is about to be executed. Sully's about to attempts to keep her in town and break up her upcoming marriage, happen against the backdrop of a botched execution, a prison break, and a possible pardon. There's so many interesting stories behind this film, specifically the feud between Burt Reynolds and Kathleen Turner, which was pretty well known. I mean, they had a very strained relationship working on the set, and they commented negatively on one another ever since. Even after Burt Reynolds died, she still had a lot of things to say about him that weren't that great. And it's funny because, you know, their bickering was probably one of the things that really kept the movie together. I mean, it leads into maybe the film's funniest moment to me, and that's when, you know, they're fighting, and Burt Reynolds is like getting ready to tell her that they're about to go on the air, and she's still yelling at him, and like he does like the thing, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then as soon as they say they're on the air, she's just like, after she's done like screaming at him like good evening, and she's like standing on she's like kneeling on top of the desk, and like as soon as the camera comes on, she's like, good evening, I'm you know, she goes back into her professionalism. Like, that was funny stuff. Everything else was just kind of like, yeah, not so much. I mean, Christopher Reeve, you know, there's the whole subplot about him. You know, he's afraid of heights, so let's put him in this glass elevator, because that'll be funny, right? And it really is not. This is directed by Ted Kotcheff, who did Weekend at Bernie's, and this is actually based off of a version of a play called The Front Page, which has been remade several times, including into His Girl Friday. And in fact, for Christopher Reeve, this was a film that actually put him off the A-list, so he basically had to audition for movies for the rest of his career. Because he did this, he did Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, before this movie came out, and that really knocked him down a notch from getting any real work that he did when he was working on stuff like Superman the movie. And the film itself, like, you could see the promise there. There's some promising elements to it, but when it's all said and done, the movie just comes off as a misguided mess of a film that doesn't really take that second level to become the great comedy that it could be. There's just brief elements of promise there, but it's not enough for me to recommend the film in general. I mean, at times it can be funny, but not enough for me to say that this one you should definitely check out. I'd say skip this one. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Rebecca De Mornay in And God Created Woman.
Sensation. Where are you heading? Seduction.
Right girl.
Run, please. Surrender.
The winner slips through, the loser dies.
And God created woman. Then things got interesting. Rebecca De Mornay in Roger Betti's And God Created Woman. Rated R. Start Friday at a theater near you.
So this film is actually a remake of this director's original film that actually started his career in 1956. And in this one, after a botched prison attempt, you have Rebecca De Mornay as an inmate who follows a would-be governor, played by Frank Langella's helpful advice, and strikes a deal with this handsome carpenter to get early parole. As one thing leads to another, Robin talks Billy into marrying her and moves in with her, determined to enjoy her newfound freedom. However, there's a catch, as if that wasn't enough, Robin wants to focus on her rock band instead of spending quality time with the family, and after all, it's strictly business, that's all. And, it definitely doesn't feel like a film that, like, the original film was a 1956 movie. This feels like a film that was made specifically in the 80s. It doesn't really feel like it should be compared in the same category as the original film. I mean, this is a film that feels like, again, kind of like with switching channels, the elements are there for something interesting. Rebecca De Mornay, I think, gives a good enough performance, but there are definitely times when you watch this movie and it just feels like, you just feel like this is a film that wasn't meant to be something as good as the original film. It just meant to be more like a TNA, is a softcore TNA film, because there are times in this movie where there are scenes that feel like you're watching something out of a softcore sex film, because like she has these love scenes in here, and it just feels like that's the only reason why this movie even exists, is because of those and nothing else. It just doesn't feel like the film really goes anywhere with what they're trying to work with here. A lot of good talent involved in here: Vincent Spano, Frank Langella, Donovan Leitch. Just good ideas in general here, but just a film that feels so out of place and doesn't feel like it doesn't have a feel of what they want to do here. Like, what was the overall end result of this? What did Roger Vadim want to do, you know, with this film that he had to make this his last film, considering that this was his last film as a director, that the first film was also his first film in '56, but I don't know. I just didn't see it. It feels like a film that definitely could have gone places. It could have been something, but it just never goes that second route to really go and take this film to where it wanted to be. Like I said, it's very similar to Switching Channels in a way. It's not a bad film, but it's just a film that feels like they tried so much more for. They were trying to do so much more for it, but just couldn't stick the landing when it mattered the most. So that's pretty much what I got to say about that one. A skip on and God Created Woman. And so with that said, we wrap up another time about the movie's Flashback. We'll flashback to February 25th, 1988 with Harrison Ford and Roman Polanski's Frantic. We also have A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, Hairspray, the original Hairspray by John Waters, Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport, Aloha Summer, and Pierce Brosnan in Taffin. So six films in general to look at next time. We'll take a look at those movies all in the next episode. That'll be next week. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.